Thank you so much, Claire. Thank you to Solar Citizens and to Get Up for organising today. It's always so heartening when people hit the streets for something that they believe in. And what more important cause can there be than to protect our very planet and the creatures that we share it with for not only ourselves but our future generations and all of those vulnerable communities, particularly in other nations. So I want to thank you deeply for what you've done today and what you'll continue to do. And I'm really heartened that we've got representatives from most of the big political parties here. Sadly, there's one that's not here, dear Minister Hunt. But I think this issue needs to transcend politics, and I think that's why community movements can be so powerful. And that's what you've shown today, and that's what I hope you will continue to do. So, to preface that, well done to Claire and well done to each and every one of you. I too would like to add my acknowledgement of country. It's the Turrbal and Yagara country here, and we acknowledge their elders past, present and future, and always convey our deep apologies for what happened in this nation. We'll keep working towards reconciliation. Now, it's been a tough few years for renewables, and Mark outlined quite beautifully and very humorously. I'm not feeling very funny today, I'm sorry about that, but what a tough time we've had in the last few years. And it's been really interesting to watch the dynamic, because if you think back in the 2007 election, climate was a really big issue. It was on everybody's lips. It was really heartening and exciting to see that. We were announcing policies for solar on every roof, and that was 9 years ago now, so I don't know where the time's gone. But in between then and now, there seemed to be a bit of a shift in sentiment, which was incredibly disheartening to all of us who care about the planet. It seemed like the community either thought the problem was dealt with or thought that Copenhagen had spoiled it for the movement, gave up hope. Perhaps they felt beset by other issues. I'm sure there's been many PhDs written on the vicissitudes of community sentiment about climate. What I take heart from is that despite, and perhaps because of, the attacks that we had on clean energy, on our carbon price, the renewable energy target in particular, the attempt to abolish the Clean Energy Finance Corporation and the Renewable Energy Agency, because we had Mr. Tony Abbott being such a climate dinosaur and just so not even understanding the science of global warming, I think we've seen a resurgence in community passion for protecting this planet. And so I want to say thanks to Tony Abbott. It's not something that I do very often, but I really do think that his intransigence and his complete lack of touch with mainstream society has been energising for us all and has given us all renewed vigour, which gives me great heart, because this is an election year and you will never be more powerful than you are this year. So please remember that and continue with your advocacy, continue to talking with your friends and your community, and continue to keep those emails flooding in to my party, to Mark's party, to Glenn's, and most particularly to Mr. Turnbull's party, because like you, I was so thrilled when we didn't have Tony Abbott as Prime Minister anymore, but not a lot has changed. We've still got Tony Abbott's policies, and that breaks my heart, because they are totally anti-science, they are totally anti-community, they are totally anti-jobs. All of the rhetoric that supposedly is about coal jobs, I feel sorry for those communities. That Adani coal mine that's proposed for the Galilee Basin in our home state here in Queensland, that's never going to happen. It can't happen because it's a complete climate disaster. And it won't happen because nobody wants to fund it, because the age of coal is over. The rest of the world is making that transition. I had the great pleasure of going to the Paris Climate Conference, and can I just say how absolutely inspirational it was, because you can read about the momentum that's happening globally, but you could feel it there at that conference. And it really strengthened my resolve, and it just brought home to me what great potential Australia has and how quickly we are getting behind. We've desperately got to catch up. We've got such great opportunities. As Claire said, we've got the best sunshine in the world. Some other countries, Spain in particular, have gone great guns on solar. Our sun's better than theirs. And here in Queensland, we're tops. Sorry guys that aren't from Queensland, but we've got the best sunshine here in this state. Our wind's not too bad. We've got great tidal, and we've got some geothermal as well. We've got a whole plethora of options that we know actually create more jobs than coal, because they're increasingly mechanising. They're killing their workers. Look at the resurgence of black lung, and they're sacking people when their profits are slightly less than astronomical. So we know the future for the economy, for the planet, for social justice is in renewables. And it's just so exciting, and we are going to get there. We've just had this blip in the road, but perhaps it's been the blip that we all needed to shake us up and recommit ourselves to getting action politically. So I've totally gone off topic. I wanted to, and thank you for sharing the passion that I share on this issue. It's really important that the science guides the debate here, because whilst we're seeing some wonderful commitments and we certainly welcome the steps forward, the science is really clear. If we don't stabilise at 1.5 degrees by the end of the century, we will lose our coral reefs. We will lose tonnes of endangered species because their habitat will shrink and disappear. We will see more and more of those horrific bushfires, those soul-destroying floods. Like, how can we not feel like this is an emergency? How can our governments not be throwing everything they've got at this? We're talking about the fate of our very homes and cities and all of the precious creatures that we share this world with. So we've just got to listen to the science and do what's necessary. At that Paris meeting, I was really thrilled that not only did countries recommit to 2 degrees, but they actually committed to try to keep to 1.5 degrees. Now, that was so important because that is what the science says is the bare minimum. And we've had some wonderful institutions here in Australia, including the Climate Change Authority, who are an independent body that is set up to advise decision makers on what the science says. And they've said, in terms of pollution reduction targets, that we need at least a 40 to 60% reduction by 2030 on 2000 levels. Now, unfortunately, we Greens have got a target that's higher than that, but nobody else does. And I think that's a real shame, because science shouldn't be a debate. Our decisions should be guided by the science. So in terms of clean energy, and I'll wrap up, thank you. In terms of clean energy, I'm so excited to see 100% pledge. I remember launching the Beyond Zero Emissions Stationary Energy Report. Thank you to David Hood, who's down here at the front and is one of the leading lights in BZE. I think, was it 2009, David, that we launched? 2008? 2006? 2010. Anyway, it was a long time ago in the greater scope of things. And the ambition of that report was, within 10 years, Australia could be powered by renewable energy 100%. And that was with the technology that was 6 years ago. Now, we have come so far forward in terms of technological advances. We know we've got the natural resources to do this. And so I think it's fabulous that Solar Citizens now are joining with BZE, and we're hearing more of these calls for 100% renewables. We've got a detailed plan that Abe, who's my wonderful policy staffer, and Mon's here too, taking snaps. It's great having wonderful people helping you. We'll hand this out. We launched this in November last year. It's a plan for at least 90% renewables by 2030. We want it to be higher, but we've costed it at 90%. We've got the plans there for how we could get there. It's a very, very extreme summary, but there's a link there to where you can get the full document. So I want you to have a read of that, follow up the detail, and then send me any comments or feedback you've got. Hopefully you love it. We think it's really ambitious and exciting. And yeah, we'd like to be challenged. We'd like to see others come to the fore. And let's make this election a race to the top on clean energy, not a race to the bottom. Thanks, everyone.